There is a combination of foods that civilizations with the highest longevity rates in the world have consumed for centuries, and that modern medicine is only now beginning to explain biochemically. It's not a supplement. It's not imported. It's not expensive. And the most absurd part, all the ingredients are probably in your kitchen right now. The problem is not access. The problem is that nobody ever explained to you why this specific combination works and what happens inside your cells when you consume this on an empty stomach every day, consistently. Aging is not just what appears in the mirror. Aging is a biological process that happens inside every cell of your body, and it is accelerated or decelerated depending on the internal environment you create through your diet, your sleep, and your level of chronic inflammation. The four main mechanisms of cellular aging are low-grade chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, and telomere shortening, the structures that protect your DNA. Each food I am going to present today acts on at least one of these mechanisms. Together, they form what I call an accessible longevity protocol, something any person can apply regardless of income, routine, or physical condition. Let's begin. Ginger acts directly on the inhibition of an inflammatory pathway called NFKB, which science considers one of the main triggers of accelerated aging and chronic disease. When this pathway is chronically activated, which happens in people with poor diet, high stress, and poor sleep, the body enters a state of silent inflammation that destroys tissues, compromises organs, and accelerates cellular deterioration. Ginger acts as a natural regulator of this pathway. It does not suppress inflammation indiscriminately. It modulates the inflammatory response, allowing the body to react when it needs to and rest when it should. It also improves peripheral circulation, which means more oxygen reaching the cells, and has a direct effect on intestinal motility, one of the most underestimated markers of systemic health. Tell me in the comments, what city are you from? I want to understand where the people who follow this content come from. This is the point that surprises most people, even those who have followed health content for years. Turmeric alone has a serious problem: extremely low bioavailability. Your body absorbs less than 5% of curcumin when you consume turmeric by itself. The rest passes through the digestive tract without being used. When you add black pepper, the piperine, the active compound in pepper, inhibits the liver enzymes that prematurely metabolize curcumin. The result is an absorption increase of up to 2,000%. And why does this matter for longevity? Curcumin is one of the most studied bioactive compounds in the world when it comes to mitochondrial protection. Mitochondria are the structures responsible for energy production inside every cell. When they dysfunction, which happens naturally with aging, the cell loses its ability to regenerate and begins to accumulate damage. Well-absorbed curcumin acts as a mitochondrial protector and systemic anti-inflammatory at the same time. Without the pepper, you are consuming turmeric at half its potential. Most people use lemon for vitamin C, but the most relevant effect for longevity lies somewhere else, in the peel and the flavonoids present in the juice. These compounds act directly on the vascular endothelium, the inner layer of the blood vessels. Vascular aging is one of the most silent and most devastating processes in the body. When the endothelium loses elasticity and integrity, blood pressure rises, tissue oxygenation drops, and cardiovascular risk increases progressively. The flavonoids in lemon have proven action in protecting and recovering this layer, slowing the aging of the circulatory system from the inside out. Additionally, after digestion, lemon has an alkalizing effect on the cellular environment, which reduces oxidative stress and creates more favorable conditions for enzymatic function. There is a confusion here that needs to be cleared up. Processed honey and raw honey are completely different products from a nutritional and therapeutic standpoint. Processed honey goes through heating that destroys the live enzymes, polyphenols, and natural antimicrobial compounds. What remains is basically sugar with a honey flavor. Raw honey preserves all of this bioactive structure, and the most relevant effect for longevity is on the intestinal microbiota. Raw honey nourishes beneficial bacteria and inhibits the growth of pathogens, reducing the inflammatory burden that starts in the gut and spreads throughout the entire body. There is a concept called inflammatory aging, that describes exactly this process. Chronic intestinal inflammation that accelerates systemic deterioration. Raw honey acts as one of the most efficient natural regulators of this process. Now tell me in the comments, what state are you from? I am always curious to see where the people who make it to the end of these videos come from. Garlic is probably the food with the longest documented history of therapeutic use in human history. But there is a detail that completely changes its effect, and that almost nobody applies correctly. When you crush or cut garlic and expose it to air for at least 10 minutes before consuming, an enzymatic reaction transforms a lion, an inactive compound, into allicin, which is the bioactive compound responsible for the main therapeutic effects. If you heat the garlic or consume it immediately after cutting, this reaction does not happen. You lose the main benefit. Allicin has proven action in regulating blood pressure, cardiovascular protection, immune modulation, and reduction of oxidized cholesterol, which is the most relevant marker of cardiovascular risk, not total cholesterol. For longevity, a healthy cardiovascular system is not optional. It is the foundation of everything. This point is fundamental, and there is a distinction you need to know before buying any cinnamon. There is cassia cinnamon, the most common in supermarkets, and Ceylon cinnamon, which is the original. Cassia contains high levels of coumarin, a compound that with daily consumption can cause liver damage. Ceylon has practically zero coumarin concentration. For daily use in a longevity protocol, only Ceylon cinnamon is safe and therapeutically effective. The most important mechanism of action for aging is the regulation of insulin sensitivity. Insulin resistance is one of the most reliable biological markers of accelerated metabolic aging. The greater the resistance, the faster the body deteriorates, regardless of body weight. Ceylon cinnamon improves cellular glucose uptake, reduces glycemic spikes, and stabilizes energy metabolism, creating a metabolic environment that consistently slows cellular aging. Warm water is not a secondary detail in this protocol. It is the vehicle that determines the absorption efficiency of everything you consume with it. The warm temperature reduces the energy expenditure of the digestive system to process the bioactive compounds. It improves intestinal motility, facilitates the dissolution of active compounds, and creates ideal conditions for the body to absorb the maximum from each food. On an empty stomach with warm water, the body has less metabolic competition, which means the bioactive compounds reach the bloodstream with greater concentration and greater efficiency. This is the difference between consuming these foods in any way and consuming them strategically. Ginger and turmeric control systemic inflammation and protect the mitochondria. Lemon protects the vascular system and reduces oxidative stress. Raw honey balances the microbiota and fights inflammaging. Garlic regulates the cardiovascular and immune system. Cinnamon stabilizes glucose metabolism and reverses insulin resistance. Warm water ensures that all of this is absorbed with maximum efficiency. Individually, each of these foods already has real and documented impact. Combined, consumed on an empty stomach, consistently and daily, they act simultaneously on the four main mechanisms of cellular aging. This is what transforms a list of foods into a longevity protocol. If you made it this far, you already understand that longevity is not genetics and it is not luck. It is the result of daily decisions that create or destroy the internal environment of your body. This protocol does not require imported supplements. It does not require a gym. It does not require a radical change in routine. It only requires consistency with what already exists, and that you have probably never used strategically. Now I want to know one thing. Leave in the comments what city or state you are from, and tell me whether you are already using any of these foods or whether this protocol was new to you. That comment helps me understand where this content is reaching and shows me that it is worth continuing to produce at this level of depth. If this content added value to you, share it with someone who complains of chronic fatigue, premature aging, or health that does not improve despite everything they have already tried. That person has probably never connected these dots.